All the power's still out, still under the generator. It's been since, Thursday when we had the big wind and the power went out. So I turned the fixtures in the garage, all have pull chains on them too, so I can turn the individual fixtures on and off. So I turned the fixtures off over the pickup, and I'm going to try and do a little work on this. I think I'm going to clean that connector up, put this piece of trim back on, put the headlight bucket back in. May start doing things that I can do without running electrical things. There's not much I can do with the wheels. I went to the tire store to see about getting them broke down. They don't have any electricity to run their equipment. I think the air compressor would max out the generator, or would put a heck of a load on it, so I'm not going to do much work on the car other than, you know, what I can do without using power tools. So I might work on that molding a little bit, but I'm definitely going to try and put this trim and the headlight assembly back in, and maybe I'll replace the fuel line between the fuel tank and the pump. There's a line that goes from the tank along the bottom of the body and the rocker panel, and then there's a bit of hose, and I don't know if there's enough light under here to show or not, but there's a bit of hose right here. No, there isn't, but the fuel line goes up, and then there's a bit of hose, and then the fuel line from the frame to the engine. So there's two long line, well, one really long line, then one that's not quite so long, and I'm going to replace them both, and that bit of hose. And I'm just going to try and get some things done. It's been a couple of days. I haven't done anything on the car, and it's kind of stir crazy today, so I'm going to do a little work. The telephone pole's still broken out back. DTE hasn't even been around. I'll take the camera and see if I can get a little bit of video of the tree. It's a pretty big tree that came. I don't know if that shows up kind of over there behind that shed. That's the trunk that broke, and then the power lines obviously, and then the tree over there. They came in and cut some of the branches out, and that's all they did. The fences are still electrified, so I got to kind of stay away from the fences. The telephone pole is still broken and leaning, so yeah. Anyway, kind of what's going on around here. I'm going to work on the Pontiac. Well, I don't know what's going to show up here or not, but I'm going to clean this corroded connector out. What I do is I just get a paint cup with some toilet bowl cleaner, and I'll just stick that in there and let it, you'll see it foaming on there, and I might as well put the ground lead in there too. And just let it soak for a minute or two, and then you got to wash it out really, really good. This isn't Snowball, this is a Lysol brand. I find the Snowball Bowl brand works really good, but I couldn't find any, so I'm just using this, and I can see it foaming in there where I pushed it in. That's a little bit of toilet bowl cleaner and water mixed. It's not pure toilet bowl cleaner, but this stuff does wonders on corrosion like connectors like this. When I'm done, I'll probably just squirt it out with some water really well, blow it out with a little compressed air. And yeah, I can't run my air compressor on the generator, but it's got enough pressure in it to where I can blow that out. And also I did get that piece of trim on, so we'll get this connector cleaned up and get the headlight bucket back in. And I like to let it soak, you know, a few minutes, so I'm going to turn the camera off and let it soak, and then I'll come back and we'll finish it up. Okay, it's been soaking for a few minutes, so I'm going to call it good. I'm going to take it out of there and rinse it out and blow it out with a little compressed air. This I'll just throw in the toilet. That'll clean it. And this I'll just rinse out with my little bug sprayer, and then I'll put some dielectric grease in it. Rinse it out really good, and then blow it out with some compressed air to dry it. I can still see the stuff coming out of it. Then I'll blow it out with some compressed air and put some dielectric grease in it, and we'll call it good now. When I hold this up to the camera, you can see there's no corrosion in it now. Look at that. Wow, how clean that is. I don't know if that shows up there or not. Zero corrosion. Toilet bowl cleaner is the best thing in the world to clean connectors and stuff. And I'm going to get a little car wax and wax this old paint up, clean that up before I put the headlight assembly back in, but I'll blow that out with a little compressed air. I'm going to turn the camera off and move it so I don't get stuff on the camera. And I'm going to put some dielectric grease in it and call it done. Alright, got the connector cleaned up nicely. Came out pretty good. This is the tube's kind of beat up, but this is the dielectric grease that I'll use, and I just squeeze some into the connectors, and then you won't have corrosion in the future in your connector. The high beam headlight connector was fine, nothing wrong with that. It was just the low beam headlight connector that was corroded in the ground, which I threw in the toilet bowl cleaner to clean that up. So those connections are all nice and clean. I have a good connection at the headlight, won't have any problems there. That is how that is done. I'm going to put the headlight bucket back in, get that all back together. I might clean up the Catalina emblem, put that on, maybe even work on the trim a little bit, straightening that. Oh, while I was out in the garage working on a Pontiac, a guy came around from DTE Energy, and that's the circuit panel here. I had to have that replaced when I bought the house. It was too small and overloaded. It was a fire hazard, so before I even moved into the house I had the panel replaced, and I had them put a generator transfer switch in, and DTE just came around to make sure no one with the generator was backfeeding into the utility. So you can see that says, sorry about the blinking red light, I'll try and hold my finger over it. Let me see here. Says utility. That's a standby. That's a 30 amp. That's a 100 amp. So you can't turn this on when this is on. There's little blackout things here. So in order to run the generator, you have to turn the utility off. Slide this up to turn the generator on. To turn the utility back on, you have to turn the generator off, and then you can turn the utility back on. This powers every 100% of the house and garage, but the generator is only 5,000 watts, so I don't run the electric stove. I turn the breaker off to the electric stove on the generator, and I always turn the breaker off to the AC unit in the wintertime because they have a manifold heater in them that draws a little bit of current to keep the manifold warm. So you turn your breaker off in the winter when you're not using it. Plus I cover it up, and I don't want it accidentally turned on when it's covered up. So 24 hours before I go to use the AC, I'll turn that breaker back on. I'll remove the cover and then turn the breaker back on. The generator will run the AC in this house, surprisingly, but the stove it will not. It runs the washer and dryer. The dryer is natural gas, but it'll run everything other than the stove. And I just put a Coleman stove out to cook stuff on, but that is what the utility company wanted to see, to make sure I had a proper disconnect for the generator. So if you're backfeeding, if you're not disconnected from the utility properly, you can backfeed into the utility lines, and somebody could get electrocuted if they're expecting the circuit to be dead and somebody's backfeeding with a generator. So that is just a little bit off track from the car, but I think important for people to know. Well, I got the the headlight bucket back on, and the bezel, the lights work, got that molding on. Might clean up the Catalina emblem and put it back on. I put the bumpers back on here. You know, for the effort to take them off, save getting overspray all over them. It just looks so much neater when you take them off and or mask things so you don't get overspray everywhere. But I might even work on that body side molding. I just can't run my air compressor, unfortunately, on the generator. I probably could, but I'd have to turn everything off in the house. And so I'm just going to putz, do a few things that need to be done, but that came out really nice. The utility company, when they were here and looking to make sure the generator was connected right, he said it'll probably be Monday before we get our power back at the earliest. So that's really attractive that we're going to have to run the generator for 2 or 3 more days. But at least I got a generator to keep power in the house. I changed the oil in it. It had almost 50 hours on the oil change, so I drained it out and refilled it. I think it had some time on it. It has an hour meter with a reset button, so every time I change the oil I can push the reset. The hour meter blinks when it needs the oil change, and you push the reset and it stops it from blinking. And so we'll get to polishing the Catalina emblem and maybe get that on yet today. Alright, the Catalina emblem, I cleaned it up and put it back on. It's, you know, it's the original emblem, so it has a few little pits in it and imperfections, but I sat down with some steel wool and chrome cleaner and then some Q-tips and chrome cleaner and got it all cleaned up, and it looks pretty darn nice. I think I'll start monkeying with the molding today. I don't know if I'll finish it today. It's going to take some work, but when I do buff the car out, I'll take this Catalina script off and clean that up, and then I'll buff this before I put the trim back on. So we're moving along, even though we have no electricity. We're still getting some things done. I also shot the inner wheel wall with a little flat black paint. So that looks pretty good. I'm going to take this little gadget out and see what the temperature of the generator is. It's been running several days and it doesn't feel that warm, the engine, so I'm going to see what it is. Yeah, the engine on the generator isn't running that warm. It's only 30 degrees out and it's an air-cooled engine. So I guess, yeah, it's just not totally warming up. The block felt cool to the, you know, just warm. It didn't feel hot or anything. So yeah, it's not even 120 degrees. So definitely a cold one out there. But the Catalina's looking good. I'm going to work on the trim now a little bit. All right. Well, I've worked on the trim for a couple hours, and yeah, you can still see where it was smashed. It was pretty messed up. I tried to sand it out, bump it out, and sand it out. I got to buff it yet, so it's just setting on the car. It's not bolted on, and I might work on it a little bit more. I'm just kind of over it for right now, but maybe tomorrow I'll work on it a little bit more and buff it out and then bolt it onto the car. But I think the car is going to look good.